Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Tuesday, April the 5th, 2016. And I have the great honor and very distinct pleasure welcoming back to the show Mr. Louis Camarosano from Small Gold. How you doing today, Louis?
Rory, I'm doing grand. How are you?
I'm all right. Well, we're going to pick up on the U.S. Mint and Perth Mint numbers in particular, and then we're going to throw in quite a bit of other useful information. So we've got a lot to cover. So let's just jump in. What do you say?
Let's do it, Rory. Well, for a little fun, I put together some data. You and Kranzler once had a podcast a while back, and you guys are trying to figure out like what percentage of the people buy silver, physical silver, or even buy
Yes, I,
physical
I
gold.
remember that quite distinctly because that's a big piece of what needs to be known. Because if you have the number of people, the number of investors that are in precious metals, then
hmm
you have a better opportunity to see what the dollars are.
Right. Okay. So I don't have the answer to that, but I did something else that's I think put some light on it. Now, I was listening to the Wealth Watchman. He had a podcast the other day, and he mentioned that last year there was a silver shortage, and the basis of that silver shortage was the U.S. Mint and the other major mints had not ordered enough blanks, silver planchets, to produce, and that's which led us to the Perth Mint. You know, because they are a mint and they have planchets, they were able to call it that silver kangaroo
Yep,
and produce those in mass quantities and kind of alleviate the shortage for people who wanted Canadian maples, couldn't get them, wanted silver eagles, couldn't get them. They went to the kangaroo. Okay, so what Wealth Watchman said was that this year we haven't seen that shortage. We've seen rationing, but he says that the U.S. Mint ordered an ungodly number of planchets this year, and he says the reason they did that was they did not want to be caught short. And the reason they didn't want to be caught short is during the shortage, that shortage ended up being a lot of media attention. And he says that they don't want there to be a lot of attention on silver. And I
that's
agree with
correct.
that.
Yep.
And I agree with that. But here's why. And these are the numbers that I put together trying to figure out. Now, I didn't figure out who's bought the 47 million Silver Eagles last year. Ted Butler says it was all JP Morgan. Other people that are in the dealership say, no, that's not true. We've had a lot of retail investors buying these coins. Who knows whether it's average order size of people buying $10,000 worth or buying a roll here and there or just a few coins. That I don't know. But what I do know, Rory, is we know the numbers from last year. We know that there's about 850 million ounces that are mined every year or have been mined every year for the
Yep.
last 5 or 10 years. And then the rest of about a billion ounces in total of supply, supposedly, and the rest is from scrap. Okay. So what I did was I was taking your conversation with Dave Kranzler and saying, well, is it 1%? And I said, well, what does 1% mean? Well, let's say the labor force, and I got this from looking at the labor force participation rate and the Bureau of Labor Statistics saying who's out of the labor force, who's in the labor force. So let's just take their number as 160 million people in the labor force. Okay.
Okay.
And let's just say we don't know, we don't even care for purposes of this exercise who's bought and who's buying the 250 million ounces of silver coins and rounds in a given year. But let's say an
In
additional
America, now you're
in
in the United
overall.
States.
Well, we're going to do America, right? We're just going to
Okay.
do America, and let's say an additional 1%. This goes back to the Wealth Watchman. Somehow, his idea that the media catches on to silver, people catch on, and they decide that they're going to buy silver in small amounts. So let's say 1% of the labor force of 160 million people, which is 1.6 million people, decide that they're going to, from now on, save in small amounts just in silver. And they decide to buy a coin a month. And at current prices, you can get a silver eagle for about 18 bucks. That'll cost you, if you buy one, dutifully buy one a month, cost you about $216. I would say there's probably 1.6 million people who, in the course of a year, can spend $216. Would you agree?
I would agree with that wholeheartedly,
Even in today's economy, I
even
mean,
in today's economy.
you can find $216 in the course of a year, even if you make $30,000. Okay, if you're a saver, and it's only 1% of the workforce. That amounts to an additional 19.2 million ounces. This is in the United States only. Now, if you add what's already being sold, right now the U.S. Mint is on track to sell 50, 60 million. You've got an additional 19 million ounces being sold on almost no demand whatsoever. Just 1% of the population deciding to buy very small amounts. Now, what I did was I extrapolated out if that 1% were to buy 2 coins a month, 3 coins a month, and 4 coins a month, or 5 and up to 6 coins a month, what that would do to the overall demand. So if 1% of the population decide instead of buying 1 coin a month, they would buy 2 coins a month, in a sense, buying a roll and a few extras, 20 coins in a roll, buying 24 coins in a year, spending about $384, that would drive additional demand up to 38.4 million. Okay, that's more than Canada mines in an entire year. That's almost as much as the United States mines in an entire year. That's in addition to the 60 million or 50 million that the United States mints will sell this year. You've got an additional 38 million on top of that.
Okay.
If they decide to buy 3 ounces and spend about $650 a year saving just in silver, this is 1% of the population.
1% of the workforce.
Of the workforce, right. This is now 57.6 million ounces additional to what we already have. Now you're getting to big numbers. If that same 1% buys 4 ounces a month, it's up to 76.8 million.
Now we're talking double.
Okay. If they buy 5 coins, it's $1,000 a year. So 5 coins a month, they spend $1,000 a year. That's an additional 96 million ounces. Now you're digging into, that's an eighth of the global mining supply. Just if 1% happens to spend buys 5 coins a month. And so back to Wealth Watchman's point is if somehow saving in silver became not even a thing, but just a thing for 1% of the population, you're starting to really dig into the overall pie of available silver. And if it goes to, they buy 6 coins a month, it's 115 million. And here's where it gets interesting. Let's say it goes to 2 or 3% of the population and they buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coins. Not very much, right? If they buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coins a month, the numbers get really dramatic. If 2% of the population buys 1 coin a month, that's 38 million extra ounces a year. If they buy 2 coins, it's 76 million. If they buy 3 coins, it's 115 million. If they buy 4 coins, it's 153 million. If they buy 5 coins, it's 192 million. And if 2% of the workforce buy 6 coins, it's 230 million. So you could see ounces that would be sold in that year. So you can see how dramatic it would be if a very small percentage of the workforce were to buy just small amounts. Now, let's say it's 4% of the workforce, which is only 6.4 million people. If they just bought 1 coin a month, you're talking about 76.8 million additional ounces. 2 coins a month, 153. 3 coins a month, 230 million. If that 4% of the workforce, 6.4 million people, bought 6 coins a month as part of a savings plan, they would buy 460.8 million ounces worth of silver. There's no way that the silver market could handle 6 million people buying small amounts of silver. Because even if if 6.4 million people bought just 1 coin a month, you're already talking about an additional 76.8 million ounces that they'd have to supply. And if they were to buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ounces, very small amounts, you're talking about 150, 230 million, 307 million, 384 million, 460 million. You're talking about more than half the supply. And it can't happen because
it cannot happen.
The demand is already spoken for on the industry side. They need 460,000 a year.
460 million.
460 million ounces for their industry. So you cannot take a small amount of U.S. Americans, as Miss South Carolina once said, of U.S. Americans buying silver, even in small amounts. A small percentage of the workforce buying small amounts of silver would utterly overwhelm the silver market.
Well, and that confirms exactly what I was my argument in that conversation that you have referenced between Dave and I is that because I was saying that if it's not going to, it doesn't require a full percent or 5%, or it just requires 0.2%.
Sure.
If 0.2% come into the market brand new, and
Right.
and apparently we're seeing that as confirmed by the doc and the conversation I had with him a couple of weeks ago,
Hmm.
and he was saying that they're seeing a lot of new customers, and not just a lot of new customers, but big buyers coming in, medium and big buyers coming in. So much more than a roll a year, a roll of Eagles a year, much more
Hmm.
at one time, which goes back to the part of that conversation that Dave was saying is that they don't want it to. They're not going to allow it to get to those levels because they can't. They know that there's no way that the market can handle it. There's no way that anything that it could be supplied. It's just impossible. It's physically impossible.
Right. Now you're talking
And
about the large investment. My example, and I think I sent you the numbers. You can publish them with the interview where I go
yes,
through the percentages. But let's flip it around. Let's say the small guy doesn't get involved, but just a few big people, guys and
exactly.
gals, get involved. The entire mining supply of 150 million ounces is only worth about 12, a little bit under $13 billion. Now, if you know what $13 billion is, it's a lot of money to you and me. But it is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. I think I sent you a chart showing that Morgan Stanley has paid $35 billion in fines over the last few years. Uh,
Exactly.
Putin is worth, $16 billion. Bill Gates is worth $80 billion. There are people that can buy up the whole supply. That's how little the value is. So even if institutional investors got interested, not because of the media and the small guy deciding he's going to save every month, one or two coins, it wouldn't take much for if just a small number of individuals were to buy silver, and there just wouldn't be any there. And that happened when one guy, I don't remember his first name, but one of the Hunt brothers, they just decided they were going to buy basically themselves, maybe with a small consortium of investors. They were going to buy as much silver as they could. And they were accused of trying to corner the silver market, which wasn't really true. But in reality, it was true because they were going to buy every last available ounce of silver. And they had the money to do it because it
Yep.
was cheap at the time. And right now, at the current price, you can buy the entire mining supply for about $13 billion. Now you couldn't because as you buy, it would go up. But the reason that's the most important uh, aspect of the whole conversation is, unlike gold, there's a lot of gold out there that would come to market if the price rose. Silver relies, it's almost a just in time commodity, on what's mined every year to meet the demand. It's
Yep.
in deficit. There's not stockpiles out there where they say, well, the price goes up, another 500 million ounce, another billion ounces will come on the market. No, it won't. That's been consumed and gone through industry. And that's where the real issue is, that if someone or just people in general decided to buy more silver, it would easily eat into the amount needed for industry. And that's why it used to be considered a strategic metal. And that's why in the 60s, one of the rationales they gave for taking us off the silver standard and not making the coins out of silver anymore was that it was needed for industry. Silver was an industrial metal. Kennedy said it had no monetary value. He said at the time, other than for making coins. But his point, and then later Lyndon Johnson's point, was it's needed for industry. It's a very important metal, and you shouldn't be messing around with it in coins. Well, if people are, quote, messing around with it for investment purposes, that's going to eat into the industrial, as you pointed out, Rory, demands that are needed for solar and electronics.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to allow that, and that's the reason that I think that I personally believe the U.S. Mint will be from this point forward. be on ration sales, that
Mhm.
they're only going to produce the 200,000 a day, and regardless of how many blanks that they have, so they just adjust how much they get next year, next
Mhm.
quarter, or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Well, they probably have an amount of blanks to do just as what you said, to sell up to 60 million, and that's it.
And that's I just and the reason that I say that with such conviction is because of what we're discussing right now. Is that if silver goes just starts moving to the high side, and there's all this demand that is seen by way of the US Mint, either by selling out or they start posting these huge numbers. If they come out and they've sold 80 million silver eagles in a year, people are going to go, wow. But if silver runs out, then people go, wow.
Then
So
they want.
so
Then they're
so,
going to
so they
want it.
have to manage how much comes onto market.
Correct. I think the cats are out of the bag though, because Rory, you remember they used to sell 2 or 3 or 4 million ounces a year, and if you
Right.
look at the numbers of the most recently released U.S. Mint numbers, they set a record in the first quarter. The U.S.
Yep.
Mint did, selling American Silver Eagles of almost 15 million coins. Now, that 15 million coins in just one quarter is more than the entire mintages of every year, each individual year from 1987 to 2007. So when this started out, they never anticipated that they were going to be minting this many coins. They were going to sell, this was hobbyists, it was a bullion program, sure, but they did not anticipate selling 40, 50, 60 million coins. They were selling 3 or 4 million coins for decades. And then the financial crisis hit, and now people are buying these coins basically to protect themselves from the government that's printing, minting the coins, protect themselves against the value of the dollar going down.
Which
It's
is
an unbelievable phenomena, and
yes.
it's hard for them to say, well, don't buy these coins. They're the big producer of them. They're the number one,
It's the number
producer.
one coin in the world.
Exactly. And they're producing more and more of them, and they can't even produce what the market wants, because that's why we saw, and we can move now over to the Perth Mint. They're
Exactly.
they're now producing well over, probably on average, 1.5 million extra ounces of silver to meet the demand that the U.S. Mint can't meet through their recently released, back in September 2015, the 1 ounce uh, Australian kangaroo coin.
Yeah. Now in September they sold like 3 million, which was
Three and a half, three point
three and a
five
half,
million.
and now for the preceding 7 months they've set new records, or there's are they have they stabilized, or what are they doing? What's going on a month by month basis?
Month by month, what they've done, Rory, is before September, they were always selling between 300 and 600, 700,000 ounces. Now, since September, they've sold 3.5, 1.8, 1.4, 1.2, 1.3, most recently 1.7. So they're definitely averaging well over a million a month extra. So they're averaging about 1.34 million total sales in silver ounces since September 2015. And that's just an example of the overflow. What we don't know, we don't have the numbers on. Certainly, there's been a similar increase in alternative silver products to Silver Eagles and Canadian Maple Leafs in the form of rounds and bars from the Sunshine Mint and the other privately mints. So, you're seeing the silver coin and bar demand going from 5% of overall demand back in 2006, just 10 years ago, to approximately 23, 24%. And that's without, that's as of last year. But I think you'll see this year, when the Canadian Mint, the US Mint, the Austrian Mint, the Perth Mint come out with their final numbers for 2016, that number is going to move up to close to 30%. That's a massive increase. And again, it comes out of the same pie that industry is battling for. And we've seen, Rory, that even the Silver Institute says that silver's been in deficit for at least 10 years. We've also been reporting that the miners have kept up. up until this year. Because
Yes.
if you look at the number, the global mining production, the last 10 years, it's gone up every year. Went up last year, it's a very small amount. Went up in 2014, went up in 13. But now they're saying in 2016, not going to happen. There's going to be a decline.
Yeah,
Great time for there to be a decline when when the demand is still
it's
rising.
exploding. Well, it's more than rising. The demand is about to get away from them,
Yes,
in my opinion, because all it will take is one small situation. Doesn't even have to be a big situation, and all of these new people that we've just been discussing that have been coming into the market, and if it is in fact somewhere around 1 million new people, based on what you were just saying a minute ago, we'll just use 1 million. If that million decides instead of this month I'm going to get one coin, I'm going to get five, then all of a sudden we have a problem. We
sure.
have a huge problem, and once again, it wouldn't require, a war. Well, I'm sorry, another war breaking out, or one of the ongoing unconstitutional wars that's happening right now, for that to escalate. It wouldn't require that. It would just require some minor bump in the road in the economy, which is why, once again, they manage that whole aspect of the news flow as far as what's happening with the economy. The stock market's up, everything's great, woohoo! So, as to keep the people in line to not look at silver and to not look at gold. And the Wall Street Journal just yesterday put out this huge hit piece on gold to keep people away from it. But they're not staying away from it, they're moving towards it, period.
What was the headline on that one? I noted that when I do a weekly week in review, and I pull together the top gold and silver stories from the week. And I remember pulling that one and kind of chuckling to myself. The Wall Street Journal. Gold goes up for one quarter, right? And they say, it's not going to last. It's not going to last. Warning here is
Right.
warning for gold bugs. This rally won't last. So stocks go up for 4 years, and during the entire time they're going up, they're never saying, oh, this rally's not going to last. Gold goes up
It's
for 2 months, and they're already saying it's not going to last. And then you see Reuters. They're constantly saying that gold went down yesterday. Well, that was because of the solid jobs report, or the upbeat, or robust this or that. They're constantly trying to say that this was a little flash in the pan. Everything is fine. Look, the stock market's back. The January, it's all overblown. There is no recession. Everything is solid, robust, strengthening. And every economic report you see, even if it's bad, they mention, but the last one was solid. It was robust. They use all these terms to make it sound like nothing can dent this. I don't even call it a recovery anymore. They talk about it as if it's like some kind of economic miracle. Lowest unemployment rate. See, when Obama leaves office, he wants as his legacy to say he came in, the stock market was at the bottom, and he left. It's at an all-time high. Unemployment was 10, 11%. It's 4.9%. So for the record books, he was a miracle maker.
What else we got there, Mr. Lewis?
Well, Mr. Rory, I think we've covered the U.S. Mint. We've covered the Perth Mint. We've just got news of the Austrian Mint had a good. They don't really sell as much silver as gold. They had a record gold year last year. I think I reported on that in the third quarter. They'd already sold about 800,000 ounces. They sold
Really?
over. Yeah, they sold over 1.3 million in the total 2015. So the Austrian Mint people kind of don't pay much attention to, but they're a significant gold seller. That's more than the U.S. Mint sold last year, probably about twice as much as the U.S. Mint. The U.S. Mint gold numbers for the first quarter and for last year were not that impressive. They're still under 1 million ounces of the American Gold Eagle, even when you combine the fractional coins. The American Gold Buffalo, it sells a couple 100,000 a year, the 1 ounce, 24 karat American Gold Buffalo coin. So the U.S. Mint doesn't really sell much in the way of retail ounces. The Austrian Mint sells a decent amount, but silver has, you talk about the silver gold ratio being about 80-1. And by the way, I was looking at it the other day, I did the quick calculation. That's 5 pounds to 1 ounce. You buy 5 pounds of silver. Well, 5 pounds of silver makes it like a base metal, not a precious metal. You can buy 5 pounds of
Of
silver to one
silver.
ounce.
Wow.
And what the mints are selling, the U.S. Mint and the Perth Mint are selling, I think the Perth Mint is selling about 36 times more silver than gold. The U.S. Mint in 2014 and 2015 sold over 100 times more silver ounces than they did to gold. And I think in the first quarter it was about 80 to 1. So, the low price has definitely attracted the amount of large surge in silver. Just because the price is lower doesn't mean that, the dollars being spent are not very high, but the total ounces going out the door are phenomenal. And at some point, unless here's the thing, Roy, I think unless all the analysts have the supply wrong, meaning they haven't added up properly what's coming out of the mines, which is kind of hard to do because a lot of
Yeah.
that's publicly reported, then there's just not enough supply if these numbers continue to come in on the demand side. And at some point, you would think there would be a shortage. Again, unless there's some silver out there that'll come magically onto the market that has been missed by everyone.
The question becomes where is it at? Because that's a question that I've been asking for close to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the metal coming from? And you know, there is, like you said just a minute ago, Lewis, there is no large stockpile of silver. It's a just-in-time metal. It's a just-in-time product, period. And unless there is, there's just some gargantuan mountain-sized pile of silver that we've been overlooking, for the past 20 years.
The only thing I can think of, Rory, is, and it's not, there are people who have silverware. Okay. But in the last 20, 30 years, not many silverware sets were sold in the United States. In fact, I was looking up where to buy silverware. I thought, it might be a nice gift. You can't even find places that really sell it. It's very hard to find. And I wasn't able to find the one I found. There was a silversmith I saw in Massachusetts, but it had gone out of business in the last 6 months or a year. So people don't buy and give silverware for gifts anymore. That was common, in the 50s and 60s. And all those silverware sets, a lot of them have been sold and melted down.
Yep.
So it's not like there's a lot of silverware in the United States. Now there may be a lot of there's silver jewelry. There's silverware probably in silver ornaments in India. But that's not going anywhere.
No.
They're not going to get. They're not going to get. They can't give. They're not giving up their gold. They're not going to start turning it into silver for industry. And it would also be just a logistical nightmare because it's not like it's in one place. To go get grandma's silver, it doesn't happen overnight. If everyone has to dig through their basement and find where the old silverware is, that's not a stockpile that you can count on if there's a real shortage.
No. And like you said, back in 2011, 2010, 2011, when silver was going up, the volume of recycled silver that came onto market was just incredible.
Well, didn't Mr. Sprott say? Didn't he say that when he did his second or first round for the PSLV fund, that he had to wait 6 months to get the necessary bars cast in the size he wanted and needed to fund the fund?
Yes. It was
go.
Closer to 9 months.
9 months, okay.
9 months.
That shows you that there's not a stockpile where you can just make the order and say, I need X large amounts of silver, which you can get in gold. The gold is available, it seems, because people are willing to part with it. They can loan it, apothecate or whatever. You can actually get your hands on the physical. It seems easier than large amounts of silver.
Now, speaking of gold, I was listening to Andy Hoffman the other day. According to him, Barrick Gold is reporting that their mining supply is going to be down approximately 30% within the next 3 to 4 years. Newmont, Ashanti, which are number 1, 2, and 3 in the world as far as gold mining, all are reporting that their production is going to be down somewhere in the 30% neighborhood within the next 3 to 4 years. Now, if you move that forward to today, what does that
Hmm.
mean for 2016? It's not going up. That's
No,
what it
absolutely.
means.
Well, what it
And
does, Roy, with gold, there are stockpiles, and demand is met from stockpiles, unlike silver, which is met from the mining supply. Most,
how long is that stockpile going to last if there's a 30% decline by 2020?
I agree. You have to continue to mine to replenish, but a lot of that mined silver goes to jewelry, and
A lot of that mined gold, you mean? You said
yes,
silver.
a lot of the mined gold goes to support directly to the to the jewelry market. But if there is a problem with gold, there are eventually, if you stop mining gold, there won't be enough gold to meet demand. But there are significant stockpiles around the world where gold will come out of the cupboard and out of the vaults to meet demand at higher prices. You will,
That's the whole point.
yes, yes, absolutely. But silver, it doesn't even matter what price it is; it's just not there.
It's just not there. It doesn't exist.
I mean, you can raise the price, that will cause people to scramble to find it, but that doesn't mean it's going to magically appear if there is no stockpile from which to go and just immediately get it.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing is that you can't, unless somebody's setting on a couple of hundred 10-ounce bars or a couple of dozen 100-ounce bars, doesn't matter. I mean, you've got to get something that is of meaningful size in order to bring to market. When I say market, I'm talking about to support, an electronics company or some type of technology.
Or, Roy,
That
what I didn't mention is if indeed, under the example we gave at the beginning of the show, there was a need for silver in the 150, 200 million ounce demand quantities, there's a lag time because that demand would have to be met not just by finding the available silver, but somehow manufacturing it into the 1 ounce, 2 ounce, whatever size it would be. And we've seen what the delay is on producing. So there would be a bottleneck, even if they could find the silver, which of course would drive the price up if there wasn't available silver or the production capacity to produce it within a reasonable period of time.
all I can say is got physical because I think the picture is quite clear at this point that something is going on. Supplies are dwindling. I'm not saying that they're running out. They won't ever run out because as long as the price is adjusted properly,
Right.
then the metal's going to come to market. Period.
Correct.
It will come to market. So
You may have periods of time where it's unavailable, you have to wait for it, but the
yeah,
idea
you'll have
that
to wait a few weeks or a few months, but it'll come to market and you'll be
right,
able to get it.
price solves everything. That's correct.
Price solves everything. So
The idea
well,
that you won't be able to ever get gold or silver, that's ridiculous. At
well,
some price, sure, you can get anything.
yep, that's it. Well, Lewis, I think that we've left him with quite a bit to chew on there. So we'll just pick this up in a couple of weeks when China and Russia and the other large reporting nations make their numbers available. And we'll pick it up there and move it forward.
Thank you very much, Rory, for having me on. And yeah, we'll definitely do that in a couple of weeks.
Okay, that sounds great.
Excellent.